What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here live for your very first 2022 NFL off-season video. And where to begin other than just ranking every NFL team way too early before the 22 NFL season, because we have free agency, we have the NFL draft, we just fresh off of Super Bowl 56. A lot of things to consider, a lot of things yet to happen before the season begins, obviously. But I love to do these rankings every year after the Super Bowl to give you my thoughts on where your team ranks in the NFL before we've made any moves. I have some sort of thought about the future of these teams, some sort of thought about potentially some free agents that they might go after or they might lose. So all of that is taken into consideration on top of new coaching staffs, potentially new quarterbacks, and all of that stuff, retirements. So in this video, I'm going to rank every NFL team in tiers. I'll try to rank them from number 1 to number 32, but at certain moments, there's just going to be teams where I can't really differentiate between number 16 and number 18. So let's get to my tier rankings. But before I do, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. Also, spike that notification bell to be notified when I go live or to be notified when a new upload hits, because throughout the 2022 NFL season, you're going to get a lot of random content from me, and what I mean by random is you never really know when breaking news is going to hit, and you want to be notified for when I'm going live or for when a new upload is hit. So make sure to hit that spike that notification bell so that you are notified when that does happen. It's a new season in the NFL. We are fresh off the 2021 NFL season. And a new season means not only can I rock the Patriot hoodies once again, but I can also discuss every NFL team, not only the playoff teams. So let's waste no more time. Spike that like button, get in the comment section, and let me know how you feel about these teams and your team specifically and where you would rank them in which tier. And let's get to the rankings. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here. We've got many categories to look at here. Let's just get this out of the way. Okay, so I should be in the bottom right corner. Let me know where you would rank your favorite team. And let's roll. Okay. So I'm just going to go in order of the teams that you see it on screen. So we're going to begin with the Seahawks, and we're going to flow through to the Green Bay Packers, who are the final team, which is an interesting final team. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different categories. The best category would be the favorite category. These are the teams that are the very best in the NFL that I think will be favored to win or get to the Super Bowl next season. The contender category is teams that I think should be considered potential Super Bowl threats, but for whatever reason are just outside that top-notch category. Dark horse are the teams that might make the playoffs. They could be maybe a threat to the Super Bowl, but a lot of things have to go right. Average, these teams are like 8-8 or now 8-9, 7-10 type teams that I don't think are going to be the worst teams in the NFL, but they're not certainly the best, and I won't really see a conclusion for them that they do become one of the best teams. And then no chance speaks for itself. Self-explanatory. This team is not good. They are not going to win the Super Bowl. They're probably going to have a top 5 pick in the NFL draft next year. What's up, Wavy Wave? What's up, Isaac? I like to watch the NFL. What's up, Flo? Mac Jones? What's going on? Samuel? Thanks, guys, for joining me here live. Spike that like button. Okay, let's go. So we got favorite, contender, dark horse, average, no chance. The first team, Seattle Seahawks. This is a really challenging one to start off because I have no earthly idea if Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback for this team. And that is a big difference maker. If Russell Wilson is the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, they could be a pretty good team. As Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, still, in my opinion, will certainly be in my top 10 when I rank quarterbacks. And Russell Wilson is that much of a difference maker for any of these other teams if he gets traded. So this one's really tough to decide. Now, offensively, I love DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and that combination. Running back position, I think they've got something in Rashad Penny. We're going to see what they do with Chris Carson. And then the other, Everett didn't really work out as that kind of third option. They brought in at tight end from the Rams. Offensive line is okay. It's nothing special. It's not terrible either. Their scheme really needs a lot of work on offense. Defensively, they've been running the same old scheme for years now, and it needs a new switch up. Their talent, though, definitely needs an upgrade in the secondary, especially at the cornerback position. Bobby Wagner's getting a little bit older. He's kind of the centerpiece of that defense. And then you've got the defensive line, which I thought improved this season. They always do a decent job with Pete Carroll there of not being absolutely dreadful. Sometimes they start off bad and then they get better and they improve as the season wears on. But I do think that this team is in sort of a transitional phase. I think Russell Wilson is likely to move on. So that being said, I'm just going to project here. And I'm going to say that Seattle, quite frankly, has no chance without Russell Wilson. I think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. And the reason I say that is their division is extremely difficult. And I think they're likely to be the worst team in their division if they lose their quarterback. And projecting that they will lose their quarterback, I don't see anyone coming in there that's going to be an upgrade. I think Pete Carroll needs to go, personally. And I think they have a lot to do with their defense and a lot to do, even with their offense to get better. So they are at the no chance tier. The Indianapolis Colts are a really interesting team. I could see them anywhere on this list, to be honest with you. I feel like because Carson Wentz is a huge question. Is he going to be the quarterback? Is he not going to be the quarterback? There's been comments about him maybe being the quarterback, maybe not being the quarterback, so I'm not exactly sure. With Carson Wentz, I feel like they're a dark horse type of team. If they get an upgrade, this is the type of roster and the type of coaching staff that could be a contender. I could certainly see the Colts being a contender. They're not too far off from being a pretty darn good team. I really like Frank Reich quite a bit. I like some of the pieces defensively. I thought they nailed the first round pick of Kwity Paye. Darius Leonard's a good player, I should say. Kenny Moore is a very good corner. They've got some really good pieces in the inside, DeForest Buckner. So defense is solid, although they did lose their coordinator. Offensively, Michael Pittman looked like he's going to be a stud wide receiver. Jonathan Taylor's arguably the best running back in the entire NFL. You've got probably need some work at other wide receivers and things like that and depth at the receiving core. But the offensive line's good. So I think this is a dark horse team. And it's really going to be dependent on the quarterback. I'm not sure. Carson Wentz is an average quarterback in my opinion. So he's going to put them as an average team, maybe a little bit above average due to the supporting cast. But with a better quarterback, they could be a better team. With a worse quarterback, they could be a worse team. So that's the way I see the Colts. The Pittsburgh Steelers, very tough again. So we have three really interesting teams to start off. Thank you, Isaac, for the super chat. He says, a tip for putting Seattle at no chance. Thank you, Isaac. And Ben, thank you, Ben, for $10. He says, not going to lie, pretty bummed. In my honest opinion, Mixon was the MVP. Burrow needs obvious protection, and Zach needs to be more rational in clutch moments to put our guys in better positions. No reason to not feed Mixon. Yeah, go. I don't know, Ben. Were you there for the review? I don't quite remember. I feel like you were. But go check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, that sucks for the Bengals fans out there. I thought you guys had a spectacular season, and we're going to talk about you here in a minute. But thank you guys so much for the super chats. Let's get to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I've talked to my buddy Mike Beck, okay? Shout out to Mike. He's a big Pittsburgh Steeler guy, and I think he's kind of leaning towards the Steelers. He feels like the Steelers are going to go in a young quarterback direction. So I'm going to go with that. I don't think that, I personally feel differently. I feel like they should go for it at this position. I feel like they should try to be in the conversation for an Aaron Rodgers, for a Russell Wilson, although that's a long shot. I don't even hate the possibility of a Jameis Winston in Pittsburgh or somebody of that nature as well, I think. And then drafting maybe a quarterback on top of that might be a bad idea. But you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have some nice pieces on defense, although their defense is getting older. And then offensively, they've got some really nice skill talent. You look at Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, the tight end, and then also Najee Harris. So they've got some pretty young, good, talented pieces. They need a lot of work on the offensive line. Defensively, they need some work in the secondary, especially at the corner position. They need some work in the front seven, just depth-wise. But you look at Pittsburgh, I feel like they're going to be an average team. And the reason I say that, it's tough to see this team being really, really bad because even without Ben and even with transition, Mike Tomlin does a good job of maximizing the talent on his roster. Every year, he's done a solid job of that, even when Ben isn't at his best. Defensively, they're still solid. Offensively, they've got enough talent. I'm not sure what the quarterback is going to come down to, but it feels like they're not going to land one of these upper echelon guys. If they do, that would completely change the outlook for them. But I feel like if they just get around the same guy that they had in Ben, which might be, sometimes a little bit average, sometimes worse than that, I could see them about that. So that's kind of where I see Pittsburgh. Also, the division is really difficult as well. The Atlanta Falcons. They are interesting because the Atlanta Falcons have a big opportunity this year. If Tom Brady stays retired, the Bucs are probably in a position where they're not the favorite, you would assume, to win the division unless they somehow bring in another quarterback of Brady's stature. So you've got the Carolina Panthers, who don't have a quarterback, and we'll talk about them. And also the New Orleans Saints, who lost Sean Payton, one of the best coaches in the NFL, and they also don't have a quarterback. So the Atlanta Falcons could be a team where they have a chance to win a very easy division. And their division, as Isaac says, is a mystery. So that is interesting. I don't know if they're going to be able to make enough moves this free agency, especially on defense, where they need a lot of work, really at all levels. And then offensively, Matt Ryan is still an average quarterback, I feel, but he's not that guy that he was, 4 or 5 years ago. So I feel like Matt Ryan is taking a little bit of a step back. Calvin Ridley's probably on his way out, and they don't have a ton of skill talent on that roster. So I think Atlanta is probably going to be, once again, about where they were this year. I see them about average because I don't see them moving on from Matt Ryan, and I don't think they can make enough moves to make a Matt Ryan-led team a good one. San Francisco, the 49ers are tough as well. Man, a lot of these teams are really tough because now you're transitioning. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be out. He's going to be on his way out. They're probably going to get a draft pick for him, which will help their draft. Free agency-wise, they don't have many holes on their roster. Maybe they could add to their offensive line, upgrade that offensive line. They could really look at their defense and their cornerback position and add to their cornerback position or their secondary in general. But there's not too many places where you look at the 49ers and you don't say that they're strong, on top of having one of the best coaches in football, one of the best coaching staffs in football with DeMeco Ryan staying put. So they have the chemistry there built in. I could see, honestly, Trey Lance being an upgrade over Jimmy G next year. I could see that as a potential outcome, but I could also see him, being a little bit underwhelming. So there's a large spectrum of outcomes here. But if I look at the NFC, and I'm just projecting the NFC, Shanahan is at the top of my list for coaches, and they've got one of the 3 most talented rosters. I feel like they are a favorite. So I'm going to put them in the favorite category because I just think that they're too good at both levels of coaching and roster, and I don't see how Trey Lance could be so much worse than Jimmy G, where it is like a bad, it's so bad that it makes them not a good team. So I think the 49ers are a favorite. The New York Jets, another team that is challenging because they are going to be so much different in terms of they could improve a ton, but I don't know if it's really going to show in their record. I think Zach Wilson will be a better player in year 2. I'm not a Robert Saleh guy, never have been, never probably will be, and that's not to do with the person, it's more to do with the coach. I just don't know how good of a coach he is personally. Offensively, the offensive line still needs a ton of work. The running back position isn't awful, but it could use maybe a better player there. Wide receiver isn't awful again, but like Berrios is a free agent who actually had a nice season for them. Corey Davis was hurt all year, so they could maybe use a true number 1 in New York at the wide receiver position. They also added Elijah Moore in the draft last year. Tight ends, fine, whatever. But they need to add a number 1 for Zach Wilson to maybe see a big jump from him. The offense second-year coordinator there could help. Defensively, they lost a lot of pieces to injury, so they should be better. I think that their secondary could use a major rehaul and probably some big additions in free agency. So the Jets are in a really tough division. They've got to deal with Belichick and Mac Jones, as well as, of course, Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, and then whatever the Dolphins are going to be. So that's a tough place to be. I still see them being 4th in their division, but I don't think they're going to be absolutely dreadful. I actually think they're going to be kind of a competitively bad team. So I'm going to put them at no chance, but that's kind of like with a little bit of upside. I got to see what they do. The Buffalo Bills are, I'm not even going to spend too much time here. They're a favorite. To me, Josh Allen is the top of the top, cream of the crop, macho man, Randy Savage. Quarterback out there. You've got the offense that is going to lose Brian Daboll, so that's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the offense. But I just think Josh Allen is so good that it might not even matter. I want to see how they take over and change it and make him more, maybe potentially lean on the run game a little bit more. We'll see, but offensive line is solid. I think it could improve with some additions. Wide receiver position is very strong. Running back position could use improvement. Maybe they look for a trade out there for another running back. I definitely think they could improve from Devin Singletary. He's not a bad player, but they could get better there. And I would honestly love them to get another receiver in the draft. Defensively, they're pretty good. I just think they need to find a way to be better when it comes to matching up with teams like Kansas City, and I think that comes with adding another cornerback. If they can add another cornerback on top of Tre'Davious White, that's going to be a Super Bowl difference maker. So the Bills are, to me, probably the favorite in a very strong AFC, and they are an absolute favorite to win the Super Bowl. The Arizona Cardinals are challenging because I don't know what's going on with Kyler Murray. He's pouting. So I'm not exactly sure if he's going to be back, if he wants to be back, if he wants to go play baseball. My Cardinals friend who is a Cardinals fan who is a friend, or a friend who's a fan, says that Kyler Murray is going to go play baseball in a couple years. So we'll see what happens. But the team I just don't have any faith in to be legit. I just don't. And what I mean by legit is I don't see them being a favorite, a contender. I just feel like the coach, Cliff Kingsbury, and the combination with what I saw in the playoffs, what I continuously see late in the season, is they're outcoached, they're out-game planned, and really they have still too many holes on their roster. I feel like they were weak versus the run, they were weak in the secondary, they just have too many blatant holes that are obvious, and there's too much pressure on Kyler Murray there to make the plays and to win them games. I think they need to completely change to become a better team, in my opinion, and that is just a long shot. So I think that they're a dark horse team because they've got a pretty talented quarterback. They've got DeAndre Hopkins back. They've got some nice playmakers there that I think can do some things. And their offensive line wasn't improved this year, but they've got to improve their corner position. They've got to improve their depth up front on defense. They've got to improve maybe another playmaker at wide receiver, and they just got to become more diverse in their offensive attack. The Philadelphia Eagles, I think, are... This one is super tough. I've heard that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be aggressive in the offseason. They might be even a team that's interested in Deshaun Watson of all quarterbacks, so that would completely change the outlook. But assuming that Jalen Hurts is the player and the quarterback and the leader, and then assuming they've got a couple first-round picks that should help their roster, I think they did a lot with their team this year. I feel like they were a team that probably is going to be one of those teams that, they achieved more than like anyone thought they would this year, and they're going to kind of come back to earth next year. That's kind of the way that I project it at the moment, because a lot of their players are kind of old. You look at Fletcher Cox, you look at Brandon Graham, you look at Jason Kelce, you look at Lane Johnson, some of these main primary playmakers on their team, and really that 7th seed isn't really a playoff team, to be quite honest with you, and they were dismantled in the first round by Tampa Bay. So I see them being kind of average this year, assuming Jalen Hurts is their quarterback. I think they'll be competitive. They could improve. I wouldn't be shocked, but I certainly need to see them add a wide receiver. I certainly need to see improvement from Jalen Hurts as a passer, because I think some of the gimmicks are going to be taken away with a year of film. And then defensively, they've got to improve entirely from a scheme perspective. Darius Slay is also old, so they just have a lot of old players in key spots that are very good for them. I just don't know how that's going to hold up. The New Orleans Saints, without Sean Payton, it's going to be really difficult for this team to maintain their same level of success. The New Orleans Saints defense is still going to be pretty strong, although just like the Eagles, they do have some older players there. The offense is very questionable. I feel like Michael Thomas could be traded. Alvin Kamara is their only real playmaker if that happens, and he was the only real playmaker this season. Quarterback-wise, I'm not sure who it's going to be. That's really tough. I have no idea with this team, because I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. So if it's Taysom Hill, I could see them being a really bad team. If it's Jameis Winston, I could see them being average. If it's someone better than that, okay, then now we're talking. And again, I don't know what to think about Michael Thomas. And defensively, are they going to be able to continuously carry and maintain this level of success? But I will say they're in a pretty bad division, so I'd give them about the same shot with the Atlanta Falcons to be in that average category. The New England Patriots. The Patriots are very, 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 very intriguing. I am going to be on my toes to be watching what Belichick does to improve this roster. There are some really nice foundational pieces to this team, including finding that quarterback in Mac Jones, who I think is going to take a significant stride forward into 2022 and become a top quarterback. But the defense is interesting. I think they've got the pieces in the secondary. They might want to look to add a corner, but they've got the safeties locked down. They've got potential. Okay, here's the thing. My thought is that they'll re-sign J.C. Jackson. They've got quite a bit of money to work with here still, and I think they will. Jonathan Jones will be back. Everybody forgets about losing him, but he is a very good player, very, very important to their team. And you've got Jalen Mills. You've got a defense up front that I think's got a lot of young talent, and Matt Judon fits the scheme perfectly well. Christian Barmore could be one of the better players at his position next year. I personally believe they need to improve that linebacker position drastically. They need to get speed at that position. Offensively, offensive line is really good, and you're probably looking to bring back Trent Brown. They might move on from Isaiah Wynn and slide Michael Onwenu back into the starting lineup, but they're good on the offensive line. They'll be a top 5 unit. Run game is going to be very solid. They've got 2 running backs that I like a lot, and James White should be back as their receiving option. Tight ends, I'm not sure what's going to go on with Jonnu Smith, but Hunter Henry seems to fit. Kendrick Bourne seems to have rapport. Another season with Mac Jones, it's going to be huge for them. I feel like they're going to improve on offense. They might slightly decline on defense. I think they're at least a dark horse, if not higher here, but I'm going to put them in the dark horse category. I think they could be better. It's just really dependent on the biggest difference maker is going to be the wide receiver position. If they can find a number 1 wide receiver, they are going to be very good. And that's kind of what it's dependent on, but I don't know if I have faith in Bill Belichick to get that number 1 receiver. I really don't know. I think they've got number 2s and number 3s there. I think Kendrick Bourne and Jacoby Myers are a good number 2, number 3. They got to get that number 1. I think they'll look to do it, and they've got Bill Belichick. I think they can challenge a lot of these top teams in this conference, but it's going to take a couple big moves on offense and defense. The LA Chargers, I'm going to put in the contender category. And this is why I might even slide them into favorite. That might be a little bit too fast because I haven't seen them do it yet. But the LA Chargers have one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. And they have a coach that I like. They've got some really nice players. Joey Bosa, Derwin James. Keenan Allen can still play. I like Austin Eckler a lot. They've got a really nice left tackle. They've got some really foundational pieces that are very strong. Now, what I'll say about the Chargers, they have some of the most money in the NFL. So this is going to be a huge offseason for the Los Angeles Chargers. They need to make moves and they need to go all in this year. It's open for them to make that move. If they can get, maybe a little bit of size up front on defense, another corner, another receiver, they could be really dangerous. So the Los Angeles Chargers are a team to watch this free agency. I want them to be aggressive. I think they should be. I think they will be, understanding that Justin Herbert, this is his time. And I feel like he's going to have a huge season next year. So the Chargers are that contender for me. They might move into favorites if they make the right moves for their roster. But look out for them big time. The Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, they just represented the AFC in the Super Bowl. Honestly, though, I don't see much differentiating the Bengals and the Chargers. I think their rosters are fairly similar. And this is no slight to the Bengals, but I feel like the Bengals were a little bit fortunate and lucky to get to the Super Bowl this year. It was a fantastic run. Joe Burrow is a elite franchise quarterback. They've got the wide receiving core intact. They've got the running back in Joe Mixon in his prime. They need an offensive line. Everybody knows this. They need an offensive line. But here's the thing about offensive line. One move isn't going to change an offensive line. It's going to be 2-3 moves that will have to change an offensive line. But just improving it a little bit should help this team. Defensively, I think they played really well. And I really love that they're bringing back all of their coaches for this season. Their defense, though, could use some work. I think they could use another pass rusher to complement Trey Hendrickson on the edge. I think they could use more cornerbacks, more linebackers, just generally maybe an upgrade. They could use a stud on defense. They really could just use a playmaker. At any level, it would be nice to have. I'm still not completely sold on Zach Taylor as the coach. I think he did a good job this year. But I don't think they're going to... If I had to pick right now, I don't think they're going to get back to the Super Bowl. But I do think that they've got a pretty good chance of competing. So I'm going to say that the Bengals are a contender. I maybe that's bold to not put them in favorite. But I do think that they're a contender. And maybe I'm doubting them a little bit. But I thought it was really, a pretty Cinderella-like run this year. And a lot of times those type of teams don't repeat. Especially Super Bowl losers, right? This is a team that did lose 8 games this season. So that is something to remember. But they're a very good team with a very good quarterback and some really good skill talent. So they're going to be up there for sure. The Chicago Bears coach, I'm not in love with the hire. Justin Fields, I thought showed some promise last year. But I certainly think he's a far ways away from being, a guy that I'm certain is going to be good. Darnell Mooney had a really nice season. Allen Robinson declined a ton, and he's probably on his way out. Offensive line needs a lot of work. David Montgomery's a good player, but he's just a running back. Kmet hasn't really worked out. They need a lot of talent around Justin Fields. I think this offseason should be about getting skill talent and just finding more playmakers for Justin Fields, finding offensive linemen for Justin Fields. Defensively, they're okay. They could use corners. They could use safeties. The front seven is solid, and I think Eberflus will do a good job there. But I see them as kind of like an average team, maybe a little bit better if they can make the right moves. The problem has been with the Bears is I think they have a lot to do on offense, and I think that they've got not a lot of cap room to really be able to do it because they've really mismanaged their cap. So I think an improvement would be a team that's feisty, but not necessarily a playoff team just yet. That might be next year. So that's where I see the Bears. The Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are a contender, and that's without even really feeling about, where the Dallas Cowboys are going to be. But, everyone's going to look at the playoffs, and they lost to a very good team in the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think that should be discounted. I think that the Dallas Cowboys, with Dak Prescott, they've got a top 10 quarterback. With their running back situation, they've probably got to consider trading Zeke if they can. Tony Pollard needs more work, period. They've got 2 talented tight ends. Schultz is very underrated. Michael Gallup's probably on his way out, but he barely played this year. So you look at the number 1 and number 2, very strong. And then Wilson is a decent number 3. So the offense should stay intact. I actually think they could use improvement on the offensive line, specifically at center and guard. They should look to maybe draft one high. Defensively, very good in the front 7. Very talented, very athletic. They kept Dan Quinn, which is huge. They could use another corner. Trevon Diggs needs to be a little bit less risky and a little bit more shut down. And I actually thought that the safety position turned out to be pretty okay for them in terms of budget players that made plays, especially Curse, who I thought had a good year. So the Cowboys in a weak NFC, they're a contender, absolutely, and they should definitely win their division. The Miami Dolphins, this one's tough. I think they downgraded at coach. Defense is going to see a drastic change, and I'm very intrigued to see how it looks because they're going to have to change everything they do, and I don't know how that's going to be a good thing. Offensively, they might improve. They got to work on the offensive line a lot to protect Tua. I'm just not really sold on Tua. I don't think he's the guy. I think that Mike McDaniel has a lot of potential, but I honestly think this team is going to take a step back this year. I don't see how you go from Mike McDaniel in his first year and improve over Brian Flores. I don't see how that happens. I really don't, especially with Mac Jones in his second year and Josh Allen at his peak. I don't see it. I think I'll give them the respect of being average because they did win, 9 or 10 games this year. So this is not me hating or anything like that. I don't think that the roster is as talented as people think. I think the defense is going to go, undergo a massive schematical change, and I don't know if it's going to fit. And then offensively, I just need to see way more improvement on the offensive line. I need to see way more improvement at quarterback. I need to see way more improvement in the run game. They have a lot to do and a lot of work to do for a team that won that many games. They're a long ways away. And I think that spoke to their coaching change, which I thought was stupid. The Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams are favorites. They just won the Super Bowl. They're in a weak NFC conference. They've got Matthew Stafford, who's an elite quarterback, and honestly, he's playing his best football of his career, arguably at this moment. The offensive line is okay. They're going to have to replace Andrew Whitworth, but assuming they can do that, they should be fine. As long as they've got one of Odell or Robert Woods with Cooper Kupp, I think they should succeed from a passing game perspective. Run game, I'm not sure if Cam Akers is really the guy, but we'll see him throughout the offseason improve. But that stable of backs should be good enough for them with Michelle there, Akers there. Maybe Michelle might leave, actually, but Michelle potentially there or Henderson there, whatever. But that's good enough. Tyler Higbee should be back. Defensively, they still got Aaron Donald, assuming he comes back. Sean McVay has said he's coming back, so that's huge. Raheem Morris is still there. Cornerback position, Ramsey is obviously one of the best. They could use improvement at the other cornerback positions, nickel and the outside spot. Safeties definitely could use improvement. Linebacker could use improvement. It's crazy how much improvement a Super Bowl team could use. And they're also going to lose some players. But I still think in a weak NFC with Matthew Stafford, with Sean McVay, with Aaron Donald, with Jalen Ramsey, with Cooper Kupp, they're going to be a favorite. They've just got too many elite players to not be a favorite. The Las Vegas Raiders. Josh McDaniels is the new coach. They made the move to get the Giants defensive coordinator for whatever reason, slipping my mind what his actual name is. My bad for that, but good defensive coordinator. He's going to change them a lot, and he's going to, I think, help them. And then you look at the offensive line, could use improvement, but Derek Carr is a sneaky good quarterback. I don't think he gets appreciated to the level he should. Darren Waller is awesome. Hunter Renfrow is very good and doesn't get enough respect. They could use a vertical receiver and a field stretcher and a guy that can make plays down the field for Derek Carr, like what they had in Nelson Aguilar. Heck, maybe even Nelson Aguilar. My guess would actually be possibly Brandon Cooks. Look out for that. But they've got other playmakers. Like I don't mind Zay Jones. I don't mind Brian Edwards. These guys are good players. Josh Jacobs, I think, playing that Damian Harris role will succeed in this offense. So they're going to be good on offense. I think they're going to be better than what they were at the end of this past season because McDaniels will make them better. And then defensively, they've got Max Crosby, who's a stud. And I'm not really quite sure about what else. I like their rotation on the D-line, but their linebacker position is kind of hit and miss. Their corner position is kind of old. You know, Casey Hayward is their best guy, and he's older. Safety could use some work, but I think they could definitely look at improving this defense, and I think they're going to change the scheme dramatically. So I think that means a lot of changes on the defensive side of the football. But I think the offense is not going to change much. So I would expect some improvement in the secondary from a roster perspective, just given the scheme that they're going to run there. And that should also help Max Crosby get to the quarterback more often as well. So I think the Raiders are going to be, I'm going to say average for now. I could see improvement, but that division is really difficult. I really think the Chiefs are going to be good. I think that the Chargers are going to be very good. And I could see the Broncos being good as well if they get Aaron Rodgers. But if they don't, then the Raiders could potentially be better than the Broncos. So that's kind of what it's hinging on. If the Broncos don't get Rodgers, the Raiders will be better than them. That's kind of the way I see it. And then the Raiders would move up to dark horse, in my opinion. Okay, so the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are really tough because a lot of this hinges on the ability of Baker Mayfield is like, how much stock do we put into this season of his injuries and how much stock do we put into him maybe not being that good? And that's the challenging part about the Cleveland Browns. It really is. The offensive line is really good. The running backs are very good. The tight ends are solid, if not good. They need improvement at wide receiver. Jarvis Landry probably needs to go. His gas is out of the tank. He's got no gas left. He's not the same player. They don't have that Odell-type player anymore. They need to find a legitimate number one wide receiver. That might come through the draft. The defense, I think they need a scheme change, but from what I've seen, they haven't made a scheme change. But what they could use as some more size in the middle of their defense. They could use some more playmakers in the secondary, specifically at safety, at corner. So Browns are tough. I'm going to put them in the dark horse category, and the reason I say that is I do think that Baker's better than he showed this year, even though I rip him apart a lot. It's just fun to do. But they've got so much talent, and I still believe in Kevin Stefanski that they could be, a team that if it goes their way, they could be back in the playoffs. So I'll put them in the dark horse category. I also think they're very smart in the front office, and they'll make some moves to get better. The New York Giants. The New York Giants are really tough. I've been saying that about every single team. But the New York Giants, Daniel Jones, I think is better than he gets credit for. I think that he is more talented than he gets credit for. And I think that Brian Daboll is going to get better out of him than what he was doing with Jason Garrett. The offensive line is dreadful, and they've got to improve that offensive line. But I do believe in the new regime. I definitely do. The wide receiver position is extremely talented. If they keep Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay, and these guys together, they're going to have some talent to work with. Not sure what's going on with Saquon Barkley. Maybe they move on, maybe they don't. I'd advise maybe keep him for one more year and then move on after this year if you want. Defensively, it's tough because they had to change their scheme, and I don't think they wanted to. I don't think they wanted to lose their coordinator to the Raiders, but that's what ended up happening. So that's tough. I think they could use improvement on the edges. They can improve definitely linebacker, but I think their secondary is pretty strong, and I think that their interior D-line is pretty strong. So they've got some positives. They've got some negatives. I think they're an average team for now. I could see them being better than average. I could see them being worse than average. I don't see them being dreadful at all. I think Dayball is going to improve them drastically from a coaching and a scheme perspective and a decision-making perspective. And I think Daniel Jones, hopefully being healthy for a whole season, is just going to be better in general because they were a much better team with Daniel Jones. The Denver Broncos, I'm just going to put them in the dark horse category because I don't really know. I'm going to assume that I could play the guessing game and say that the Denver Broncos are going to be a contender with Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if he's going to be there. But I do think I'm not sure about Nathaniel Hackett as the coach. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're not overrated. So I'm just going to put them in dark horse. It's really hard to analyze this team without understanding who the quarterback is going to be. And because there's such heavy rumors about Aaron Rodgers, I feel like I'm just going to put them in the dark horse category. And even Russell Wilson could land there, or, somebody of that stature could land there. And that would just drastically improve their team because so much of their problems has been the quarterback position. So I'm going to put them there. The Tampa Bay Bucks, oh boy. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, I'll just add on to the Broncos conversation. Where could they improve? So they could improve definitely at edge without Chubb there. They could maybe add a difference maker there. They could have, I'm not sure what they're doing with their secondary. Their secondary is strong if they keep it intact, but they do have some free agents there. Offensively, they could improve their offensive line. I think they need to just give Javonte Williams more work at running back. I think they've got the receivers, to be honest with you. They don't have much to work on. I think they should improve their defense of front seven and potentially, their... Could they... honestly, there's not a lot to improve. Their offensive line and their defense. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It depends on the quarterback. Once again, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Tom Brady, so that's going to take them out of the favorite category at the very least. You then talk about, okay, the next level of quarterback, are they going to land a Russell Wilson? Well, if they get a Russell Wilson, they're probably a contender. If they don't get Russell Wilson, okay, then that's a step below Russell Wilson. I don't see it being Aaron Rodgers. So if it's not Russell Wilson, let's say it's a Jameis Winston type, they're probably a average team. So that's where I'm going to put them. I'm going to put them in average. The reason I say that, I think their talent, their roster is still pretty darn strong. Even if they lose one or two players, like let's say Sue goes somewhere else to a contender, or let's say that Gronk leaves, I still think they're a pretty talented roster. But their coaching, Todd Bowles is really good still, even despite that bad Rams game. And Leftwich stayed, which is a huge plus. But Bruce Arians is just getting worse by the season, so I'm not a huge fan of him. So, and I don't know how good the quarterback position is going to be. It's obviously going to be a drastic drop from Tom Brady, so that's all I know. The Detroit Lions, I still think have no chance. And the reason I say that is they don't have the quarterback. If they get a quarterback and they had more of a bright spot there, I would say they could be, a better team. But they don't have a quarterback. Their offensive line is going to be good. Their running game could be good. Receiving core needs a ton of work, and I think they'll improve that this offseason. Defensively, they need some work in the secondary. They need some work at linebacker. I don't think their D-line is awful. But the Lions just need a lot of work with their roster. This was a total rebuilding year, and they're going to take a while to get to where they want to go. So, no chance. The Jacksonville Jags. Trevor Lawrence is a guy that I think could, if he improves the way that we think he could, I mean, this team could jump drastically, for sure. I think Doug Peterson is going to make them a lot more competitive. So I'm going to put them, honestly, I'm going to be bold here, I guess, and I'm going to say they're going to be an average team. That might be crazy to say, but with Trevor Lawrence in his second year, with an actual respectable coach that I like, Doug Peterson, I think their defensive coordinator is already decent. I think they've got some talent on the roster, so I don't think they're awful, and they definitely have a lot of cap space to improve. So with improvement, they could drastically change. They could be anywhere from no chance to dark horse, in my opinion, but it's all on calculation. I think they've got some receivers to work with. I think they've got running backs to work with. I think they've got a couple offensive linemen there. They've got a defensive line, that a couple pieces there that I like. Maybe the secondary needs some improvement. So they're not too far away from being like a playoff type of team if Lawrence can be what we thought he could be. The Washington Commanders is their new name. They don't have a quarterback, so I'm not sure how that's going to go down. Offensive line is still going to be solid. Ron Rivera, I like as their coach. I think their coaching staff is solid. Not fantastic, but not bad. Offensively, Terry McLaurin's good. Running back position is good. Gibson's a good player. McKissick's actually been solid for them. I'm not sure what his contract's looking like. They could use a number 2 wide receiver, and they might look to get one. Their defense has some really nice pieces up front and some young nice pieces. They could use improvement at linebacker and at safety and corner. I don't think they're definitely not a no chance. I see them being more of an average football team again. And that was even with like a bad quarterback play, that they were like an average football team. So I see them being kind of average once again. They could maybe move up if they get a better quarterback, but it's just going to be tough for them to get a quarterback because of how bad their ownership is. I don't know how many great quarterbacks will want to look at that ownership situation and say, hey, I want to play there. The Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, man, they're tough, but as long as they have Kirk Cousins, they've got Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. Kevin O'Connell, who's an offensive coach, bringing the Rams scheme to that team. Offensive line should be just about the same, if not better, with some young players improving. Defensively, they might fall a little bit. So they're going to be one of those teams that's probably winning some shootouts and losing some shootouts. I could see them. I'm going to put them in the dark horse category. The reason I put them in the dark horse category is because I think that Kirk Cousins is better than he gets credit for. He's better than, I would say, all these quarterbacks in the tier below him, other than maybe Derek Carr. And yeah, I think, maybe I should adjust the Raiders. So I'm gonna put the because like Derek Carr, I'm going to put the Raiders up one. So I'm going to put the Vikings with the Raiders because I feel like with Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins and maybe a little bit of improvement from the coaching and a little bit of improvement, in a couple spots, they could be a dark horse type of team. They've got those type of quarterbacks where they're on the edge of the top 10. So that's why I put the Vikings there. The Kansas City Chiefs, they're a favorite. I don't have to spend too much time. They got Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's going to be a little bit older, so certainly that is something to watch. Offensive line was better this year, but still not maybe where they want it to be. Running back, I think they should keep McKinnon. I think Clyde is looking like maybe not the answer, and maybe they want to look elsewhere. But I do definitely think they need to look for a number 2 wide receiver. Their new Sammy Watkins. Who's that going to be? Juju? Odell, who's that going to be? You got to find that guy. Maybe Allen Robinson. Defensively, they just feel like they're piecing things together with tape all the time. And I don't know how consistent that's going to be. So I feel like there's going to be seasons where they have their rough cycle, but they, with that coaching and with that consistency, I think they could be good. So I think their defense is going to struggle next year because I think they're probably going to lose Tyrann Mathieu in the secondary. Yeah, that's going to be tough. It just feels like they're piecing stuff together all the time. But the Chiefs are going to be favorite. The Ravens. This one's tough. To me, they're rather a contender or a favorite. The Ravens, I didn't like them losing Don Martindale, so that's going to take them out of the favorite category. I am intrigued by their new defensive coordinator. They need more playmakers in their front seven. On the edge, at linebacker, they need to look for some new playmakers there. Their secondary is strong, though, especially. I think they could look at safety and improve at safety, but their corners are really good. And their offensive line, it's okay. It could use improvement. I think Bateman's going to develop into a good player. I really like what I saw from him. I think Marquise Brown had a good season. Mark Andrews is a good player. I think they're pretty good at wide receiver and tight end. I couldn't say that last year. Running backs are good, and they'll get Dobbins back, which will be nice, but you never know with running backs coming off of injuries. And Lamar is obviously very good and elite. So I'm going to put them in the contender category with John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson and that secondary and Justin Tucker kicking the ball. And just their consistency as a franchise and in a front office, they're going to be a very good competitive team. The Carolina Panthers. I'm not sure I'm sold on the coach. I really am not sure I'm sold on Matt Rule. I thought this season was a big-time question mark in his favor, or not in his favor. Sam Darnold obviously is not the answer. I'm not sure what they're doing at quarterback, but we do know that their ownership is very aggressive. So we'll see if they make a move at the quarterback position. Once again, the offensive line was arguably the worst in the entire NFL last year. They need improvement at all 5 spots, maybe other than right tackle. CMC will be back, but he's constantly hurt at this point. He's unreliable. The wide receiver position is very, very talented. I think Robbie Anderson is good. I think Marshall is good. I think that DJ Moore is awesome. But they need a quarterback to throw them the ball, and they need the offensive line to protect. Defensively, I think they were low-key one of the better defenses this season. They've got a very dynamic, athletic front seven. They could use improvement at safety and corner once again. But they're a team that, if they get the quarterback in place, they could be a dark horse. But for now, I'm going to just stick them in the average category beside Washington. They're a little bit similar to Washington. Tennessee. Mike Vrabel, I think at this point you've got to put him in the category of coaches that you can't say that he's going to have a bad team, even if the team isn't super talented. Julio, I believe, is going to be there once again to complement A.J. Brown. Julio is not the same player he used to be, but he's still a good number 2 receiver. Number 1 wide receiver, A.J. Brown is a stud. Derrick Henry is back. I think they honestly found something with Deontay Foreman as a backup running back to him, and that could be a dynamic 1-2 punch. The offensive line is getting a little bit older, and they could use some new, fresh bodies in there. Defensively, they improved a ton. Hopefully, the younger players can take another step forward. But I think I see them as Tannehill. I'm just not like super excited about. And I feel like the offense could use a little bit more flavor. But if they can stay healthy and they can add a couple things, I'm going to put them I'm between favorite and the dark horse. I'm kind of like in between both. I still think they're the favorite for their division. I think I'm going to put them in dark horse. I think they're a little bit less convincing than these other teams because of I'm not sold on the quarterback. I'm not sold on the age of their offensive line. Just not sold on Julio. Like, a lot of their offense just bugs me. So I'm going to put them in that higher end dark horse category rather than the contender category. The Houston Texans, I've got to say they have no chance, and I'm sorry, but I just don't see it. You know, the coaching situation is a disaster. The quarterback position's not going to be much better, although Davis Mills played his heart out. They just don't have enough talent. It's going to take a couple off seasons to get to where they want to go, and it just feels like there's so much behind-the-scenes nonsense in that building. So the Texans are one of the worst teams in football. I don't want them to be, but they are. Now, finally, the last team is the Green Bay Packers. With Aaron Rodgers, they are a favorite. There is no doubt about it. They've got Aaron Rodgers and a defense that's improved. The offensive line is good. The Devontae Adams is a stud. and they've got 2 running backs that are nice. I've been saying this for I don't know how long. They need a number 2 receiver. Will they get one? We'll see. The defense could use a little bit of improvement up front on defensive line, but other than that, I think they're pretty darn good. Especially, using a first-round pick. Was it a first-round pick on a corner that hopefully develops? So, assuming Aaron Rodgers is there, I'm going to put them in the favorite category. But assuming that Aaron Rodgers is not there, this is a team that drops to the average category for me. So that's kind of where I stand on the Packers. From what I understand, their roster is pretty well intact. But all the pieces really come down to Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers is there, Devontae Adams will also be there, which means they're an elite favorite to win the NFC, especially an NFC that's very weak. So there are my tier rankings, my very early, way too early tier rankings for every NFL team in the NFL for 2022. Let me know your guys' thoughts. I saw quite a few complaints about my tier list in the live chat. Let me know if you feel the same in the comment section below, or if you agree mostly with my list. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate everybody tuning in live. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView, and we will see you with a ton of off-season content. I'm honestly looking to do like 2 videos a day at this point. Really ramping it up this offseason and hopefully carrying that momentum into the 2022 NFL season. Thank you guys so much for the support. Appreciate you as always. Gronk, spike that like button. Check out the Discord link in the description to join the community. Check out the Patreon to support me as a creator. You can also become a YouTube member if you want to support me at any level and what I'm doing here on YouTube. If you enjoy what I do, you can also support me and get exclusive content as a YouTube member or as a patron. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's Mitch. Peace.